Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Look, the show's on time this week. Well, fingers crossed. I don't know. It's not out yet. But anyway, I kind of want to move through this one a little bit quick. I got my boosty boy today. There you go. And so I kind of just want to chill. So let's get right into the Q&A as it's supposed to be done. Before that, thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. They don't get anything out of it. All the content's available here on YouTube for free, but thanks to them. In fact, I think there was somebody who pledged last week now that my mind is being jogged right here. Ah, yes, Tez Barla. Thank you for joining as a... What are my tiers called again? Elite. I haven't had to say it in a while. Thank you to them. Thank you. There's your shout out. And with that, let's get into the Q&A, shall we? All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. You can lightning round this. Kind of curious. Well, we didn't start with a hello, so maybe I should have saved it for the lightning round. Thank you. Just kidding. If you ever used Apex at 100 soul gauge and didn't get blast arrow to proc, just happened to me. Must have been a bug. So there's a few things that would cause that. One, being level synced would definitely cause that. Two, missing. If you were, let's say, level 90 and doing oh wait, that wouldn't make any sense. You couldn't possibly miss unless you were blinded, but I can't think of anything where that would happen. There might also be an interaction where the attack... Oh, you know what? You might have been at max range. So interesting thing happens with abilities that are like giant, like brick-sized AoEs. They're not conals. They're not like circular. They're like a long, like rectangle for the hitbox. If you are at the absolute max range, you can fire the skill off. You're actually slightly out of range of the enemy. I think if that happened, you would actually not get a blast arrow proc. So you know what? It might be that. That might be what happened to you. All right, next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hope you had a great week. Same to you. Hello. Also, since you said hello, I'll give you a proper hello. I recently made the swap from Summoner to Bard. Good to see you change from one range physical job to another. That's pretty neat. And having never really done any Savage before, and wanting to take this step, worried if the inherent rigidness of Bard song rotation or Radiant Finale will be a detriment to it. Absolutely love the playstyle of the Bard in the moment to gameplay, and working out pretty well during normal raids and extremes, but deaths are an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I mean, the best advice on Bard is not to die. There are ways to fix it. Generally, your absolute best bet is not a very good one. If you die in the middle of a song rotation, you need to kind of get up and then make sure you hit your next song when you would normally do it in your rotation. If you're dead too long, that can mean skipping a song altogether. Like if you need to press ballad in the next 5 seconds and you die and you get rezzed 15 seconds later, if you press ballad there, you're screwed for the rest of the fight. Whereas if you wait and press Wanderer's Paean when you would normally press it next, that puts you back on the right path. It can be very difficult, but with time, you get better, you die less. So this becomes less and less of an issue. It's kind of like when Red Mage was first introduced to the game. It was actually a really weak job in terms of its DPS output, but for prog, everybody loved having the raise. So it was very frequently used for that reason. And eventually you just basically outgrew the problem in that you were doing less DPS, because if people were not dying, you didn't need the Red Mage for that. It's kind of the same here. You're worried about what will happen when you fail instead of thinking about how to succeed. I would focus on that because I think you'll be fine no matter what. Tons of jobs have similar issues to this, and I don't think that's going to be any more of an issue for you than playing any other job. Before I answer this one, the comment above this mentioned that you use Eucrasia as much as Dark Arts because Diagnosis is the only way to farm Toxicons. Let me be very clear about something. Sage should almost never be farming Toxicons. Yes, in a dungeon pull, it makes sense to want to get them, but you have to use an extra GCD to get them. So that's why you normally throw a shield on the tank before they start the pull, so you get a Toxicon going into the pull. You never sit there and go, oh, I need to get Toxicons. Let me just cast this for no reason. That's not usually a good idea. Just really quickly want to get that out of the way. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hi. I'm contemplating the possibilities of starting Deep Dungeon purely for the mounts. Which one do you think is more easily accessible between the Dodo, Dark Pegasus? Oh yeah, that's Palace of the Dead. Or the Hwedi. So Hwedi is just beating Heaven on High 4 times. Absolutely the best bet. So I'm going to say that. I don't even know if that's how it's spelled, pronounced. I have no idea. After that, they're kind of the same. The Dodo is a little quicker to get to because Heaven on High is shorter. But yeah, I'm going to go the horse that you get from getting all of the accessories in particular. I think it takes 4 clears if you buy 1 accessory every time. from Heaven on High. The Dodo after, because Heaven on High is shorter, and then the Dark Pegasus because it's only 151 plus from Palace of the Dead. And is Palace of the Dead 200 much harder to solo? No, just much slower. I actually had a lot more fun soloing through Palace of the Dead than Heaven on High, but only on the higher floors, because those lower floors are agonizingly slow. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Good day. Hi. Welcome. Probably a really quick one here, but I was watching your buff timing video for Asphodelos, and a question popped into my head right near the end. Just as the final fight was ending, you mentioned having LB amongst the timers all coming up, or not coming up. And that got me wondering, do all of the various personal group buffs affect LB damage, or is it flat damage always calculated without buffs? Limit break outside of very specific circumstances is always calculated without buffs. Your personal buffs will never take into account, and some fights have individual limit break mechanics that have to be taken into account. Now, as for who should be LBing, which I'm sure is the follow-up question, it does not matter who, as long as you are using the set type of limit break. So let me see if I'm remembering this correctly. The limit break scales off of your party's collective weapon item level, which means that if you have a Dragoon with an I-500 weapon and a Samurai with an I-600 weapon, their limit breaks are the same because it's pulling the average. It also means, because weakness doesn't affect limit breaks, that if somebody dies and they're one of the people who could be doing the correct limit break, they are normally the go-to, because it will not take that weakness into account, and they're still contributing more than they would with that 25% reduction. So all those things are to consider. Also, the different limit breaks for the DPS do have different potencies. They equalize ranged and caster. Those are the same potency now, but the melee one is stronger than that. So just a couple other things to keep in mind. Hey, Happy. Hi. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I'll take it right after the hello. Hey, you made sure the hello was first. I appreciate that. I know you said that skills should never be macro. I didn't say never. I just said you should try to avoid it as much as possible. And you lose DPS every time you use a macro. Controller Dragoon. I could have seen that one coming a mile away. Yeah, Dragon Sight's one of those macros where you will lose more DPS probably trying to use Dragon Sight correctly. Honestly, even on keyboard and mouse, you probably would. This is one of those acceptable kind of sacrifices. Yes, it makes it a little bit more annoying to weave. And also, a big thing here, an OGCD on a macro is a lot different than a GCD on the macro. Being on an OGCD macro makes it so that its responsiveness is worse. You as an individual kind of have to get used to the timing of using it, because you need to understand where your ping lets it activate, because you will not get a buffer window like I always mention. But because you're not missing a GCD to do it, assuming your timing is good enough, that helps a lot. Now, I know Dragon Sight actually, I think, has to be double weaved, even though you have to macro it. But it's one of those acceptable sacrifice things, because the skill is far too clunky to use. It's why a lot of Dragoons kind of want it to be changed in some capacity, like maybe pick a dance partner or something, so you can just press it normally, and that's just your Dragon Sight. Like, I don't know, let the Dragoon have like a Gaze of Nidhogg buff or something that they put on an ally, and then whenever they press Dragon Sight, it uses on that target, and then you can move it throughout the fight. It's certainly a better alternative than what there is now, and I kind of hope that they fix it. But your macro is a perfectly acceptable one. Almost every Dragoon that is serious in endgame will be using it. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy. I saw the title, this person's name, Caramel Dancin' Desu. Oh my God, Caramel Dancing. You just put me back 15 years, I swear. Hey, Habs, hope you're having a good week and are staying hydrated. I have to. But like I said, booster. I drank like 3 or 4 cups of water. I got Gatorades here. I'm good to go. Long-time watcher, first-time asker. Bardmain here, normally a blue parser, but in P2S I'm having a hard time not hitting grays. Think some of it is from buff windows coming up right at limit cut, and I don't know if I should save them or not. So fortunately for you, and I think I released this after this question, I made a video about buff alignment. You should, and everyone should, be saving buffs for after limit cut in P2S. But I'm not going to lie, even with that, I guess I'd have to see the individual runs, because P2S is one of those fights where you might not realize you're doing weird things because you're kind of really focused on the mechanics. So yeah, that's a tough one to judge. That'll definitely play a role, but that's not going to put you at gray. There's clearly some other things on a personal DPS note that you're doing that you're not realizing. So I would definitely keep that in mind. I would analyze if your dots are falling off, if your songs are falling out of alignment. Are you missing Radiant Finales or Battle Voice presses? Or your thought I heard my cat for a second. Are your well, one of them's here, the other one's in the other room. God, what are they called? Your sidewinders. Make sure your sidewinders aren't missing. Make sure you're not overcapping, not forgetting the apex, not forgetting the blast. As little things. This is one of those cases where I can't definitively say, yeah, it's because of that. I would definitely take a look at some other elements of your play. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Well enough. Hope the same for you. A buddy... Well, I was going to say that, and then you said it to me, so I don't want to say it back. You know what I mean. A buddy of mine and I were discussing new jobs down the lane and noticed you mentioned the possibility of there being a scouting job in the near future, something I brought up during the discussion. I want to know if you might agree that the scouting job could be the next physical range job. No. If they ever do another physical range, it will be aiming. They are going to keep the scouting gear on a job that is likely very similar thematically, or at least could get away with wearing gear that's similar to Ninja. They will try to make it something that's probably more considered an agile, sneaky thing, but I would not... It's not going to use aiming gear. It'll use aiming accessories, but it won't use aiming gear. They're definitely going to keep that as in line as they possibly can. Hashtag Mr. Happy Weekdays. Clever. Clever. Hey, hope your week is going well, and here's to a delicious steak dinner. That sounds like a good time. I'm not going to do that tonight, but I'll keep it in mind. My question is, what do you think about Paladin's current standing amongst the 4 tanks, and what buffs or changes would you make to bring it on equal footing? Paladin just needs damage buffs. I love current Paladin, but could use some damage buffs. And I think they'll probably hit it in a few places. They have a couple of options. They could go for the higher skill floor option of putting potency on Fast Blade, Riot Blade, as well as the first 2 parts of the combo for your sword combo. That would be something that even the most simple of players, even the players who just kind of don't kind of try to min-max or optimize it, they're just really, really inconsistent, that raises their power. So it kind of keeps them up to par with the changes that they want to make. They could also go down the route of buffing Confiteor or buffing things during their Request Cat window. Buffing Atonement would be also another really solid way to do it. And depends on the frequency of the skill. I'd have to look at a Paladin's actual breakdown on FF logs, how much of a percentage each skill is, to give you a more exact, I guess, prediction. But they're just going to buff their damage. I don't see any reason to really change much else. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. No hello again. Not doing great on the hellos this week. But the amount self-sustaining tanks have, excluding Dark Knight now, do you think it would be beneficial to give the healer role for more DPS abilities? No. So the main reason the healer role does not have DPS abilities is so it is easy, particularly, to swap between doing damage and actually performing your set role. They don't want you to have to commit to chains of skills in order to, actually pull out your damage and do a rotation, because you could need to interrupt them at any second because of a mistake, because of an upcoming mechanic, and they don't want to balance around bosses doing mechanics based on when the healer needs to be doing a burst window. It's just not something they really want to be considering. That being said, I understand why people feel this way, because your opinion is very much something that makes sense when the majority of your content you're doing is not Savage, when it's kind of normal mode or even extremes from time to time. Things that don't really push the healer role into doing the most it needs to do. This most recent Savage tier, you'd be singing a different tune, because the tanks having sustain has almost no bearing on how easy or difficult any of the bosses are in Savage. And that's really where the majority of this power kind of needs to come from. I do agree, though, that doesn't mean you should ignore what it's like to play in dungeons, because 99% of the people who play this game will be doing dungeons, and 15 to 20% are going to be doing Savage. So I will say they could do more interesting things. I think Sage is a great example of how fun a healer can be inside of a dungeon. And actually, I even think Astro is a pretty decent example. They have skills like Microcosmos, like Star, that feel good. You know that you're contributing to the kill speed, as well as it's a healing tool that you're using. And I really want to see them move more in that direction of skills that have healing or utility that have damage tied to them without being a damage gain specifically on one target. I think it's healthy for the game because it forces you to commit that GCD to doing your role, but you're not sacrificing the thing that most healers are trying to do, and that's to pump DPS. And then in AoEs, that changes a little bit. But I think that'd be a great direction, something I'm praising, and I hope to continue seeing going forward. Hashtag Mr. Mondays with Mr. Happy. See, I just didn't even read it. I just started reading the hashtag out of my head. Hi, Uncle. It's Happy Oji-san. Please, you got to say it like that. I don't like Uncle Happy. It makes me sound like the uncle you don't invite to the family barbecue. How do you keep your stamina and mental game during raids, especially considering you do them for such long stretches of time? Trying to clear P2S, and even though I have the whole fight down without mistakes and have hidden rage, keep finding pug parties that can't reach the last stretch without multiple deaths and killing my drive. So step number 1 is I'm not doing it in pugs most of the time. That really helps your mental game. So my advice may not entirely apply. But I have done long PFs that are just unsuccessful before, and I generally just try to make the best out of the situation. You know, if I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and other people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, there's not really much for me to, I guess, say, because I'm not gonna yell. I'm not gonna be toxic, at least not in game. Sometimes I'll say to myself like, "Oh my God, what is this healer doing? They're always dead there. Oh, please, please." Yeah, I might have a moment like that, but it's not worth the energy other than the momentary groaning of just like, here we go again. It's better to just make it a story, share it with people, tell people what happened, you know, why couldn't we clear, what was going on, and I don't know. Prefer making things an experience. As for how I do it in my normal raid sense, trained, experienced, I've just done it so long. Even when people are making mistakes and I get frustrated, you know, at the end of the day, it's like I'm playing a game. I let the tensions rise, let the tensions wear off, let the tensions rise. Just go through fluxes. Make sure it's a healthy flux of emotion that constantly vents and you know, rehydrates itself. It's not how that works, but you know what I mean. And that helps a lot. Just keep a stable mind. Here's a nice quick one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Reddit this time. Hello, Mr. Happy. Thank you for saying hello. What area do you hope we explore in the next 14 expansion? The New World or Mrhappy? If I had to put money on anything, it would be Mrhappy. It has been a major plot point since 2.0, since even before that. And now that, you know, Tiamat, last expansion, went back to Mrhappy, I want to go say hi to Tiamat. I also want to know where Azdaja is. I'm willing to bet Azdaja is in the New World, and we won't see them for quite some time. But I want to go to Mrhappy. And as Ethis has pointed out, Thavnair is the only trade city in our set of continents that has open trade routes with Mrhappy. So we have our in. Looking forward to it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, hope you've been aight, brother. You too. Been a few years since I asked a question, but watching darn near all your videos since anyway. Thanks. My question is about the stats granted by materia. Basically, is the hard cap that has diminishing return after passing it, or can you stack crit forever and ever and ever? I'll answer this before reading the second paragraph. So number one, each piece of gear has a maximum amount of stats that can even be placed on it. Those are your hard cap. So the stat that you want the most of, you'll normally stack as much as you can. If you can't put any more of that on it, you go down the list. If you can't put anything on the second stat, you put it on the third stat, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you want to balance it, make sure that you have a certain amount of skill speed, for example, or spell speed. Maybe you're a healer and you want a certain amount of piety as well, something that gives you a little more comfort in your progression. You know, maybe you're progressing slower and you find you need more MP because people make more mistakes, there's more deaths, nothing's as reliable, and you just want more piety. So those are the things to consider. As for the actual stats having hard caps, it depends. So crit is an exponentially scaling stat, where the more of it you have, the stronger it gets, because it not only increases your crit rate, but it increases the potency of your critical hits. So crit just naturally takes off like this. Now, determination and direct hit, on the other hand, are semi-linear. They really more like taper off. I forget what this is called, like this. So they have like moments where they like cross each other, where if there's too much of one, it like goes down, and they kind of do this up the list, if that makes sense in the graph, depending on how much you have. Because of that, having a certain amount of determination over direct hit is kind of considered in the acceptable range. If your determination is within 500 or more of your direct hit, then it's still providing you the greater benefit. But after you cross that threshold, some jobs actually start going towards direct hit. But realistically, with our numbers right now, it's very, very rare that determination is 500 or more over direct hit. So most people just go with either determination or direct hit, depending on the job, the individual skills, the scaling, the research that's been done by people who do the stat weights, and they just roll with that. Now, for the second part, as a side note, if you were big on Lauren's Savage tier, a channel run by Bellular, oh yeah, I know all about that. Dude, there's recommendeds for that all over the place here. Yeah, I've already got my own thing of what we'll see in the second and third tier. Trust me. Anyone who's took this story and didn't just do the raids and knows what happens, we got some things. We got some things to check out. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Same to you. I'm trying my hand at Savage for the first time, and I'm having a blast. Glad to hear it. Doing it through the Party Finder, and as such, I've run into a lot of different personalities. One common thing I've noticed is a lot of randoms I've met relate to P2S to O12S. And also, yeah, no, I understand that. That makes sense. Pretty much all of them really hate O12S. That's strange. So my question is, looking back now, what kind of impression did O12S leave on you? O12S left minor frustration, and also this is really freaking cool. The mechanic they're referring to is the limit cut mechanic that people talk about on P2S. And while it's not really like limit cut, it is more like Omega MNF's dashes, where they basically dash. They each have their own 1, 2, 4 marker, and they have to dash back and forth. People have to avoid clipping each other. They have to make sure they're a certain distance away. It's very similar to this. This instead, it's the head bouncing around and the body doing that kind of same dashing motion. But it's weird because that MNF is actually more enjoyed by most people. Excuse me, most people than the second half is, which is more traditionally designed. It feels a lot more like a traditional Stormblood encounter where you kind of learn it up to 50% and then you just repeat it. Yeah, some people are okay with patch. Some people like or dislike Hello World, but more people were generally excited by Omega MNF. So to hear that they didn't like it is unfortunate because that's not the opinion I've seen around more. So it's weird that you're seeing that more than you're seeing that people liked it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, hope all's well today. Same to you. Got a couple questions you may or may not know the answers to. Do you know if being undersized affects triple triad card drop rate? You know, I had someone tell me it does. I have not found that conclusive because I have all 312 of the base triple triad cards. There was one card that was awful, and that was Thordan. All the other ones I unsynced, 2, 3 attempts. So my anecdotal evidence says no. It's probably not as you've suggested or as you've asked, but I've had other people say yes. So I think it's all just people anecdotally saying things, and I don't know that there's any actual statistics around the change in drop rate. So I don't think there actually is one. You know, if there's any other way to get the Varus card, you and a bunch of other people wish the answer to that was yes, but the answer is no. Memoria is indeed the only way to get the Varus card, as far as I know, unless they added something in Endwalker. But as far as I know, the answer is it's the only way. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday on Wednesday. I should have called it that. Missed opportunity. Hello, Haps, and congrats on your week 1 clear of Asphodella Savage. Thank you, and hello to you as well. Been a month and a half since my last question, so I'll try to make this one worthwhile. All right, let's see what you got. Made it to P4S on week 1 with Static, but I pugged outside raid days, and this tier seems like a pug kryptonite. How do you think Party Finder is going to fare this tier compared to Eden? People say this every tier. And I'll say something that I've only said once before, because I've heard this exact phrase once before. The only kryptonite in the Party Finder is the Party Finder itself, because the Party Finder is a self-imploding, self-managing machine that in North America has no form of consistency whatsoever. This is due to a mix of people who learn the first thing they see and refuse to budge. It's a mix of people picking up strats that could be better and they don't do anything to improve them, or they don't do anything to adjust to new strats popping up. And that's people who just want to get through and can do everything but are suffering because they're not the same as the other 7 people that they're running it with. I think this tier is going to be great in the Party Finder. I don't think it's a bad tier at all. I just think people need to get used to it. I think one big thing that's going to improve over the weeks in the Party Finder, if you notice people Party Findering like previous tiers after they become unlocked, normally, even with terrible mistakes, you get through. And that's because of gear. So I think that as the weeks go by, the gear is going to help the people who are trapped in groups that aren't making it through, or people that maybe fill one of those brackets, but they play well enough to actually get through the fight, and they just need that little bit of an edge to make up for the mistakes and the flubs. So I think this tier is actually really, really good for the Party Finder. The most toxic thing, in my opinion, Pinax in P4S and Firestorms of Asphodelos in 3. You get through those, I think you're pretty much in the clear. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hope you are doing well. Same to you. I'm new to harder content. Just got my first on level Savage clear for P. Hey, grats. I wonder if I'm the only one with another complaint about the healer LB3. I think I know what it is. After doing Diamond Weapon EX and then seeing the range increase, I thought healer LB3 must be perfect now. Then yesterday I got launched into the boundary of P2S, died, and instantly died again. I had a feeling I knew the answer. Is there a limitation I'm unaware of? Is this a common complaint? This is a limitation that's there so you don't so that not every mistake is fixable by a healer LB3. If you want to fix that mistake, that one requires you to directly step in and raise the individual as opposed to actually healer LB3ing them. So it just prevents that from being an absolute be-all, end-all, save-all option. So people are still forced to do some mechanics correctly. It's less of a common complaint and more of a common hilarity, I suppose I'll call it. So I wouldn't expect them to change this anytime soon. Hashtag Mr. Happy. All right, just no. I guess to be fair, this wasn't on Monday, so I don't deserve the rest of the hashtag. Hey, Mr. Haps, curious on the carbuncles that walk around Idleshire and Mordona. Is there any lore for them? So there is, and I actually was talking about it like 2-3 weeks ago, at least the one in Mordona. I can't remember. There's a kid who's also walking around looking for the lost carbuncle in Mordona. I forgot about the one from Idleshire, but there are NPCs that are part of this kind of mini, like it's just kind of like a slice of life occurrence that's happening in the cities. I know for a fact there's a kid walking around looking for his carbuncle in Mordona, but I forgot about the one from Idleshire. So if you look around, you might find those NPCs. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope January and 2022 have been good to you so far. We'll see how I fare after this. That'll be the determining factor. My question may have been answered before, but do you think the devs will ever add the remaining Grand Company ranks from Commander to Champion? I guess the only reason they would add it is it has to be reason or motivation. Yeah, you nailed it. They said that they'll raise it when there's a good reason to, and there hasn't been. And I don't think they want to deliberately make a reason either when Grand Companies are old. Let's put it that way. They're old. Some people have taken to seeing them adding the new Grand Company rewards, those loot box style things, and they think it means they'll add them soon. And you know what? I can't say they won't. I can just say that I don't think it's happening. Honestly, I don't think it'll ever happen, but at the very least, not anytime soon. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Ayo, Mr. Haps, COVID fist bump. Is that, you mean like, is that this? There you go. That's the COVID fist bump. Elbow bump. Long-time listener, first-time asker. Question, on main black mage, you always get confusing or conflicting opinions on crit versus spell speed. Personally, I've always figured crit over spell speed because I've melded all of my gear's materia into spell speed. I feel like my cast times still take forever. I also get the suggestion of spell speed till comfort. Yeah, so most black mages, honestly, you can be orange, meaning you're in the top 5% of all damage parses on FF logs with either build. I will say the very upper end are normally crit, because the very top of FF logs is normally crit RNG farming. It's why getting a gold is cool and all, but once everyone's BIS, there's a good chance that if you do get a gold, it's because of crit RNG. Like you've just out crit RNG other people who are in that top. So really getting into the 85 to 95 range is the best show of your individual skill. And then 95 to like 97 kind of wanes. And then 98 to 100 is like a little bit of everything. It is an absolute showcase of skill, but also of a little bit of RNG. So I always say go with what's most comfortable. I love spell speed black mage. I would play spell speed black mage, but crit has the higher highs. That's just the natural way of things, but you'll be super consistent with spell speed. So again, you just really can't go wrong. That's why it might sound confusing, but it is literally play what you like. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello and good day. 2 questions for you today, so I'll try to make them as short as possible. You did not do a good job. I can already see. Listen, I like to talk a lot. Can't blame you. 1, do you have any thoughts on Bozja or Eureka's longevity going forward? Namely, the fact that Eureka is already doing scheduled BAs and Linkshell's calling bigger monster prep, but Bozja is pretty much just fate grind leveling instance at the moment with little to no engagement in the raids. Even during Shadowbringers, during new patches, Eureka was still quite busy. Do you think Bozja will pick back up after a few months? Do you think it will continue to be 2 to 6 people at best in the instances? I'm not seeing 2 to 6 on Ether. I am seeing 30 to 40 on average because a lot of people are leveling there, as you've stated, even after level 80 itself. I do think that there needs to be some life injected into Bozja, though. Eureka was created as a self-sustaining, kind of isolated piece of content. And at the time, that was a major complaint. People are like, oh, I'm doing open world content, but I can't, do the duty finder or group up with friends because we're not the same level. And, I feel like a liability and I can't teleport to this. Okay. It's full of a lot of headaches, but in retrospect, because it's so isolated, it means that by no means does anything impacting the outside of Eureka really affect what's happening inside of Eureka. So all the things in there kind of stay valuable to the people doing it, and all the things that you do in there don't affect the outside world. So it's just created this little pocket dimension in Final Fantasy XIV of content where people don't have to worry about it being outscaled or made irrelevant or anything of that capacity. Whereas with Bozja, because they created it with this leveling in the main game, it's now intertwined into all the game systems. So if leveling becomes the main function, then why am I going to do something that's less efficient level-wise, aka CLL, Dalriada, and Delubrum Reginae? There's no point in me doing those unless I'm doing my Relic, but I'm not doing my Relic. I'm level 90. It's old content now, and even if I want to farm that, there are some alternatives outside of that first-time completion. So I think it needs life injected into it, basically. And that Eureka, in retrospect, it being that isolated content, has done wonders for its longevity. So, thumbs up from me. Think I ever see stats on gear have more interesting interactions? No. So, in content like Eureka and Bozja, I think they're still too tame with gear. They can go absolutely nuts with stuff on that and not just focus on actions or essences or things like that. But in the rest of the game, they're going to keep it very tight. They're going to focus on job balance while the substats just fill the void of giving you something to work towards, and I don't see it ever changing. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays weekly. Left it out of the hashtag. It didn't deserve to be in the hashtag. Hello, hi. I recently got into tanking instead of melee DPS because I got tired of most melee DPS requiring different gear sets. Perfectly reasonable. However, I'm still confused on when exactly mitigation registers, specifically against the savage sewer monster's move, Coherence. Does the party stack portion of its snapshot mitigation when the cast bar finishes, or can I cast Passage of Arms or other mit a little later? The answer is a little later. So the way Coherence works is it's actually 2 different casts, but the second one is instant. The Coherence is just the tank buster that's actually hitting the tank. That is 100% registered when the cast finishes. However, there's a split second between the two where you could theoretically pop mitigation. Now, I will say this. I wouldn't mess around with Coherence. I would just do it as soon as the cast bar is finishing, because we're talking about maybe a second and a quarter. Like, you're not talking about a whole lot of time. So if you start rolling a GCD at that time, there's a good chance you don't hit your buff. Plus, not every buff really registers instantly. So most of the time they've gotten better. Things like Passage are generally better, but I wouldn't play around. I would just do it as if it's the end of the cast bar and just take the hit if you're not sure, as opposed to trying to squeeze out that extra GCD and being a little late. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Nice. Hey, Happy. Hope you're doing fine. Same to you. So the question is, are Chocobo Gold Feathers account wide? I think it depends on how you get them. Because I think if you get them from, let's say you get them from making an account or making a character, I'm sorry, on a new world, and they give you that little bonus, right? Like, so like it's listed as one of the rewards for the upcoming OCE servers. Yeah, you're mentioning that right here. However, if you have Recruit a Friend Gold Feathers, then the answer is 100% yes, because I have Gold Feathers on all of my characters from my Recruit a Friends. So if I have 5 on my main and got 10 from the Oceania transfer, if I transfer an ult, yeah, you could buy it. Absolutely. Yeah, if you have 5 from Recruit a Friend, those will definitely go with you. So, yeah, you're all good. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy, welcome to Mr. Happy Mondays Weekly Nature, where we ask you questions and you answer them. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. My question is about possible monk. Specifically a Notman. Do you think there's a reason they decided not to have a Notman interact with Chakra in some way, like generating a stack each second, so you don't have to spam meditate during downtime? Maybe have it be that way to open up Nadis. So I would not recommend making it a way to generate Nadis outside of combat, because while yes, that means you could open with a Phantom Flurry, that is opening up a whole can of worms that I don't want to think about right now. So why doesn't it interact with chakras? You know, I don't have a good answer, because there is not a good answer. You could argue that so there is a reason to press them out of combat so that APM remains high even outside of combat. And it also makes it, yeah, no, there's really no good reason. I mean, I say that whenever Monk comes up with these kind of niche skills in the past, I always say there's really no good reason why it couldn't just be this other thing. And this kind of falls in line with that. So I don't think they'll involve it with Nadis at all. But I don't have an answer to the other part of the question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, hey, or hey, hi, hello. Hope you're doing great. Same for you. You said it 3 times. It almost makes up for the other people. 2 questions. 1, we have 3 pages worth of inventory exclusively for key items, given that inventory space is and will always be a priority issue. Has anyone ever asked Yoshi P if there are any plans or considerations to cut down all the dead or unused key item space to give us more actual inventory space? Man, I know we've heard an explanation for this before, but I couldn't tell you what it is. I'd be bullshitting if I tried to explain. That answer to that question is out there somewhere, because it has been asked. But oh God, man, I can't remember. It's too much information over the years. So if you can find it, if someone can find it, great. But you need a source, because I, for the life of me, can't remember. Yeah, because I've wondered the same thing too. No, there's an explanation. There definitely is. I just don't remember it. 2, not sure if this has been asked or answered, but are there any plans to add weapons to ultimates for the jobs who don't have any? Yes. So previous to Endwalker, the answer was no. And then during, I think, the media tour, somebody asked, I think it was a European outlet asked if we could, and they said they were looking at doing it. So yeah, I think they are going to get it. in the next, I don't know, probably half a year if I had to guess it. They didn't give us a time frame, but the fact that they even said, when Yoshi says they're looking at it or considering it, that usually means they're doing it. And so, given they don't need to do one for every job, I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. But the answer is, yeah, we should have them at some point. All right, I'm getting a little tired, so I think I'm going to lightning round the rest of these. I didn't sleep a whole lot last night either, so after getting this thing, just want to make sure that I'm as rested as possible. I do have some other work I need to get done also, so I need to conserve some energy for that as well. I had one here. This would have been the next one I answered. Have they mentioned increasing the mount speed in Eureka? No, and I don't think they will. To be honest, it's not that bad to get around Eureka. Not so much so that the mount speed really needs to be increased too much. But I also don't think they're opposed to this. I just don't think it's a consideration at the moment. So if they do consider it something they want to do in the future, I don't think they'll hesitate from doing it at the very least. Can you remember a mechanic that one job trivializes that another job in the same role cannot? As much as Death's Toll? Not that much. I mean, there have been some cover strats in the past. There's definitely been some wild stuff. I mean, one specific job, yeah, I mean, really just Paladin comes to mind with cover strats. But no, the Death's Toll thing with Astro is insane. And I don't think they're going to change it. I think it's an entirely intended interaction. I've seen you say to get weapons first. How do you get more than one weapon in Asphodelos? Of Asphodelos a week. You don't. Per week in Asphodelos Savage, there is the Discal Tome. Now, if you're just doing normal mode, it takes 7 weeks in order to get the items you need for a Discal Tome. But in Savage, the second encounter drops a Discal Tome. So you can get it from that, and then as long as you have the Tomestones, you're good to go. So that's when we're referring to stuff like that, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the normal mode swords. We're talking about the Savage mode, just direct Discal. Let's see. I think I was actually coming close to the end here looking at some of these. Remember you asked an interview about healers getting DPS tools again. What was the response? Because I can't find it. Yeah, that was a recent one. No, they just said the answer is no. You're not going to get more complicated rotations for healers. I could kind of akin to what I mentioned in the earlier question as well. State of Summoner and Savage rating. You know, after the Phoenix buffs, it actually helped a lot because they gained an extra 500 and I think 540 potency every 2 minutes, which equals out to about 270 a minute. I still think they need more help. I think they should rebalance some power at the very least to make Ruby Right feel a little bit better to press. And I think they could probably do with some general buffs. Red Mage will probably have to be buffed as a consequence, but that's where I kind of stand on the state of Summoner. Now, I have a different concern about Summoner in terms of its Savage spot, in that it is very bad for a Summoner to have to res. Like, way worse than it ever was before. So much so that people just say, yeah, don't expect the Summoner to res. Unless it's literally do or die, the healer is probably going to res before the Summoner does. So that's that's a thing. And I wonder if they make any adjustments that make that feel a little bit less unfortunate, I suppose, is the way that I would put it. Let's see. First time asker, bonus philosophy tomes. Can I have the Persona 4 poster in the background? No, it's mine. Where can I obtain? I don't know. I got it from Atlas themselves. So thank you to them. And it's lovely. I enjoy it. Let's see. Let me preface this by saying I'm realistic. Hey, you said hello. I'm not going to miss that. Whole balance is reasonably comfortable and outside of Dancer. I could see an argument that no other balance changes are strictly necessary for a healthy balance state. That said, someone who's only been playing, this is my first time experiencing Savage Prospect balance patch. How many and large? How many and how large do you expect the changes to be in 6.08? Going to be a ton of damage buffs. Tons. Tons and tons and tons of damage buffs across the board. And that's the biggest thing. I won't be surprised if White Mage gets some MP adjustments, stuff that lets it manage its MP a little bit better, even maybe a little bit more power in some of its punch. But it's going to be a lot of buffs, a lot of just direct damage buffs more than anything else. How powerful is the 1% group buff from taking a range? Enough that people care. Let's just put it that way. If they didn't care, listen, you don't need to have a range physical in terms of the 1% damage buff, but depending on which range physical you're bringing, at the very least you're getting damage reduction as well. Dancer brings a shield and an extra heal. Machinist brings just a gun, I suppose. And Bard brings a ton of RDPS buffs while also being incredibly strong. So I'd say the big thing is that a well-played ranged right now outside of Dancer is contributing enough that losing the 1% is not worth it. If you're like a middle of the pack range physical, maybe, but not like a high-end played well range physical job. Let's see. I'm now finished MSQ looking at leveling Black Mage or Monk, but Palace is super boring and leveling dungeons take forever. What sort of other things you do to level? So fortunately for you, Jake Evans, I put out a video of how to level from 1 to 50 in under 8 hours. And that will give you a lot of ideas on what you can do, at least to limit the amount of Palace of the Dead, Heaven on High that you need to do. I've also made other leveling range videos, so I would definitely check those out because those have a lot more useful information than I could convey to you in a weekly Q&A. Let's see. First time DPS, was very scared. Please tell people, let's see. As a Reaper, I've cleared 1 and 2, practice 3. There was a lot of clipping when combos happens in certain skills. I wonder how bad it is. I have very bad 2-line connection Wi-Fi with very high latency. Yeah, there's not much you can really do about that. Let's see. In time I noticed more clipping because of latency of the line. Do you know a way of Reaper to avoid clipping best? Okay, I'm not doing this as a callback. This would have been my answer had you not explained that your internet wasn't good. But better internet is the answer. So, sorry. That's it. Which job do you think is the most boring or dumb? Red Mage. Boring on that end. Dragoon pretty close, but Red Mage is my absolute bottom. Let's see. Bought a PC key over Christmas. Kids took a PlayStation when it's bought. Yeah, you can't make accounts because they're not selling the game right now. Soon again though. Oh, I got people explaining to me what Happy Oji-san means. It's mostly respectful and isn't used to meant prerogative of your age. Probably more of an indication JP thinks you have a very paternal demeanor. I'm Uncle Happy. Dude, get some sleep. You got black rings on your eyes. These are actually hereditary. I know it's crazy to think everyone in my family has them. I do. Even when I sleep like 8, 9, 10 hours a day every day. I used to do that, and it didn't do me any good. Yeah, everyone in my family has them. It's the worst. We all look like we're always fucking tired. So, yeah, no, that's fine. Anyway, what do you think about the potential buffs coming down for Dancer? They better get them. That's what I... They better get them is all I have to say. Let's see. No, okay, there's not that one. What is the 14X Kingdom Hearts collab? Never. Thank God. Even if macros increase your DPS instead of lowering, you should still never ever clog up chat channels with chat mac. No, I made sure to stay. No, last week I said that. I said please don't be posting things with every single skill. I answered that. I definitely answered that as part of that. Let's see. It's Wednesday, Medusa. Oh, okay. I think I'm at the end. There were a couple of spoiler questions I skipped. I'm still skipping those just because I'm often tired and I don't want to do the work to actually. When I'm accepting them, when I'm answering them regularly, I'll make sure to tell you. But for now, I'm still kind of chilling on them. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you for watching. If you have a question, put it in the comment section of the video below, and I'll try to get to as many as possible next week as well. With that, I'm going to go chill. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. And until next time, take care.